over the weekend, Dave Chappelle did a show in Boston. And there were a lot of people who walked out of that show. The reason is because he delved into the topic about Israel and Hamas, particularly the Palestinians. And he said that none of the Harvard or Columbia students should lose their jobs over public statements supporting Palestinians, blaming Israel for the recent conflict that has now taken the lives of over 5,700 Israelis and Palestinians. There was a law firm, that rescinded letters of employment for 3 law students who signed the anti-Israel document. And a lot of people were screaming for Chapelle to shut up. Now, listen, again, it's a comedy show. I think that a person could say whatever they want to say, but you got to be ready for the blowback from it as well, especially when you take it into this arena. But, of course, Chapelle told him to shut up, too. And see, here's the thing. You could read up on that deal about the story. Chapelle is inconsequential to what I want to tell you. But, I expect a guy like Dave Chappelle to anger people because Chapelle is notorious for coming out and saying some things. You don't necessarily know what he believes on it. He just likes to stir things up. But it's a bad look on that. It's a bad take. Anybody that, in my opinion, if you say you're standing with Palestine, to me, that's the same as you're saying I stand with Hamas. No, I can't go that route with you. I just can't do that. But sometimes people that I think maybe are well-intentioned, I'm going to give Chapelle the benefit of the doubt, and maybe I shouldn't, but I'm going to because I want to make a point with it. Sometimes well-intentioned people, even smart people that are caring and thoughtful, critical thinkers, get off on these wild tangents. They kind of get caught up in the tidal wave of emotion that gets carried about by a certain popular opinion, and they feel like they're doing the altruistic or the merciful thing by siding with the so-called oppressed people. Now, no doubt, as I've said over and over again, there are no governments of men that are purely good. They're not. They don't exist out there. But we have this weird sense of justice in our brains because we filter everything, one, through a first world mind, but we also filter everything through a Western mind. And that's unfair when you're thinking about the way the globe operates because people don't, for instance, I'll just give you for instance, here in the West, we think in terms of linear. We think timelines. Right? We think there's a point A, there's a point B, there's a start, there's a finish, and then there's all these little dots throughout history of this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, and then it comes to an end. In the Middle East, they don't necessarily think that way. They think more circular. It's more cyclical. It's more everything is moving. It's one big sphere. That's why if you read the book of Revelation, we tend to read the book of Revelation there at the end of the Bible like it's a timeline of events that are supposed to happen. No, all these things, it's both and. All these things are happening simultaneously and separately, and it's that Oriental Middle Eastern mind that thinks in terms of everything working in a circle, everything coming around. They're more about the event. We're more about the time, right? We say the concert starts at 8. They think the concert starts whenever we're ready to feel like the concert's supposed to start. You can say 8 o'clock, but that don't mean it's going to start at 8 o'clock. Now, what I'm saying is we interpret things differently. And so a lot of times in our Western mindset, we tend to equate people like Palestinians or Hamas or other groups of people out there as, say, like American minorities. They weren't given the opportunity. They weren't given the chance. They weren't. And again, even when we see those in, let's say, inner city America that are lashing out with violence, we condemn that. But we look at it and say, hey, maybe if their circumstances were different, then things would be different. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's not true. And we have to take that as it comes to us. But in a situation where you have a worldview that embraces death and violence, such as Islam, which, by the way, if as I said to you last week, that Islam is a religion of death. It's not a religion of peace. I've caught a lot of shit over the years for saying that. I really don't care because it's a fact. It's a fact. It's not a religion that brings peace. It's a religion that brings death. It glorifies death. So when you take a group of people who have a theocratic mindset and a global worldview that embraces death to everyone and espouses death to everyone that doesn't share your same worldview. And by the way, they want to kill other Muslims too because they believe that their sect is the only right one. And so, again, they're the only ones that can survive in this conflict. When you embrace that, you can't say, okay, they're just like all the other marginalized people of the world who just weren't given a fair shake or an opportunity. So it's a very narrow and a very naive mindset that we have to interpret the world like we would interpret our situation. You can't do that. So when a guy like Dave Chappelle gets on a stage and says, hey, man, I just want to, no, bro. You may mean well. You may mean well. But I promise you, this is a very different situation from what we're talking about here. So stop associating these folks, for instance, Hamas, let's just use that, or Hezbollah. Stop associating those people with either American minorities or the plight of American minorities or even migrants that are coming to the southern border, because even they come from a different mindset and a different worldview. All right? I don't know if any of that's making sense, but I'm just telling you, we got to stop thinking that the rest of the world thinks like we do, because they don't. And that's ultimately what's going to get us destroyed. That's going to lead to the downfall of America. It's going to lead to the destruction of the republic. It's the Trojan horse, because we think that everybody who's coming into this country thinks like we do, wants to be like us. They're just pursuing a better life. I mean, 3.2 million encounters at the southern border, 18,500 gotaways, all of these people, 250 apprehended that are on the terror watch list. I'm sure they were just coming here for a better life. They wanted a job at McDonald's with, a $15 minimum wage. That's what they were looking for. They were coming to lay down their suicide vests and embrace the American dream. That's what they were after, man. That's all they were after. If you believe that, then you are on poor man's cocaine. You are all hopped up on Captagon, and you are not thinking straight. You're like the naked lady I just saw on Crack Rock out here on Northwest Highway, doing something with your crotch, completely oblivious to the traffic around you. It's a great metaphor if you think about it. She was oblivious to the traffic around her out there on the highway and just out there diddling in her crotch because that was her world. That was the most important thing. That was the priority for her in that moment. And I think, guys, maybe it's time we pull our heads out of our ass as well, all right?